This is the Tom Anderson Show, broadcasting live from the KVNT studios, 7 to 9 a.m., Monday through Friday.
Hey, we are back, and it's always nice to have state all-stars. Jeff Reichman is one. He's a state senator in the great state of Iowa. Oh, man, I think about pheasant hunting days in that beautiful state. And he's a retired lieutenant colonel, U.S. Marine Corps, served 2 tours in Iraq. Thank you for your service, Senator. It's such an honor to have you on. You dump Trump and switch to DeSantis. I want to get the skinny on what happened. I read your op-ed. I've read the coverage. I reached out to you. You were very thoughtful and responsively wrote back to me thinking, what's this guy contact me from Alaska for? I think it's important for national folks that listen to our show. We have a growing audience to that end, but also here in Alaska as they decide who they're going to vote for. But first, let's talk about where you represent in Iowa and how long you've been in office.
So this is just finished my third year in session. So I have the very, very furthest southeast portion of Iowa. We kind of jokingly call it the Florida of Iowa. As you look at that little peninsula that goes kind of down into Missouri.
Yeah, that's a beautiful country. I'm looking at the map right now. What's it like to serve in office? I've been there, done that in Anchorage. I represented East Anchorage in the state house. It's an interesting dynamic and environment, isn't it?
It is, yes. And, I call it, we serve part-time. So it's only a $25,000 job. And then I call it going back to reality. So we serve from January till April is when the session technically ends. We go a little overtime the past couple of years, and then we got called into a special session this year to address the heartbeat bill that the courts struck down. It actually put a stay on it. They just put a hold on it and said, I think it was 5 years for a ruling. So they said, if you're going to do it and you're still serious about it, do it again. So within about 10 days, we went back and passed that heartbeat bill back through on both the House and the Senate side.
Well, you have an amazing governor, and your efforts on policies and issues, as you just described, are so critical. And right there in parity with you, I have no doubt she's probably a friend of yours, Kim Reynolds, your governor, GOP member, 43rd governor of the great state of Iowa. What's it like working with her?
She is, I'll tell you, just fantastic. If you look at the COVID response, and we jokingly, I think in derogatory terms, people call us the Florida North. And I take a little offense to that because a lot of times we're actually passing legislation before Florida is. So we have a lot of parity there. A lot of stuff, they pass, then we do, or we've done it, and then they, like for instance, the heartbeat bill, that's a lot of talk in Florida right now. The state of Iowa passed that back in 2018.
I was about to say, you guys have been on the forefront nationally. You're on the national radar for your efforts and momentum. It's true.
We don't get the attention, but we get things done. And sometimes it's better that way, right?
Yeah.
But like I say, we're part-time. I jokingly say $25,000 a year or about $1 an hour because, as you know, it's never done. You're constantly getting emails. You're constantly getting questions as you're out in public. So, I joke pays about $1 an hour.
Public service. When I was in, we only made $24,000 a year here in Alaska, and then they upped it to $50,000, and then you have a pretty high per diem. So lawmakers in Alaska, state house, state senate, make close to $85,000-$90,000 with moving expenses, all those things. So they're not complaining, and then they get staff of 2 or 3, and so we're blessed. Part of that is from our economy. And let's talk about the Corn Belt, agriculture, manufacturer. You guys have a burgeoning renewable energy sector, and I know you have tech, biotech, all those areas. I want people to understand how important Iowa is, and then I want to get into the presidential race and what your state means for the national radar, especially when it comes to Iowan voters and your caucus in the earlier part of 2024 when they pick who they feel is the best presidential candidate. Your economy is growing, and you're on the radar. Why is it important that you be the first primary? And what does that tell America? I mean, I think it's really the voice of Americans.
It's a great place to start. The candidates go through here in droves, depending, which party is in office and which one is trying to unseat them. We've always had just a myriad of different candidates come through. And even I live in a very small town, from 10,000 people, and still multiple candidates I've seen throughout my lifetime. And it forces them to get out and get with the people. And, we talk about this popular vote versus the electoral college. And if there's a group that want it going to popular vote, and if that happens, these little states will never get visited again because they're going to go to the population centers and skip these small towns. And it's important for these people out in the outlying areas to have a voice and have these politicians, go through and have some of the tough questions and see what things are like out here.
Yeah, we've got from Target Smart Dr. Dan McMillan on tomorrow, and he did a poll in New Hampshire. He's concerned about dark money. There's a notion out there that if you pay folks to vote or if you automatically register them, in Alaska we have ranked choice voting now, copying New York City and other cities and states. The GOP doesn't dig that because the idea is, okay, you get the top four. What if you don't like the second, third, or fourth? What if you don't know them from Jack? You know what? You don't want to vote for people you don't know anything about. And sadly, we're not Europe. We're not Germany or France, where typically, well, I say that in this way. They're a bit more educated, and they actually research and dig down whether you like their governmental structures. You look at Seattle, Portland, in our neck of the woods, a lot of voters don't research who they're voting for, and all of a sudden you see people surface that you think, how the hell did they get into office? And that leads me to voting processes aside. With the Iowa caucus forthcoming, it's on the radar. You had the courage to say, I was a Trump guy before. I am no longer. I have switched and put my support behind Governor Ron DeSantis. You did the same thing I and many of my colleagues and friends and colleagues in the business world and the political world have done. Why did you do that?
Well, if you're keeping up with Trump at all, he 2 weeks ago made a statement directly about Kim Reynolds. And, as you said at the beginning, I spent 29 years in the Marine Corps. So devotion and commitment to your superiors is a big thing. And Trump put out on Truth Social that he wasn't happy that Reynolds didn't endorse him. And she said from the beginning, I'm not endorsing anybody because everybody's welcome here. We're first in nation for caucus, and if we have to be welcoming of all candidates, and I'm not endorsing anybody. So he knew that to begin with. But as I said, how many times have we gritted our teeth and shook our heads at something that the former president has said? So he made that comment. I don't invite Kim not inviting her to my anything anymore. And I helped her out. I got her elected, basically. She won by 20 points. She outperformed him.
And Trump did not get her elected. People already loved her. She would have won with or without him. Isn't that fair?
Yeah. Yes, definitely. And the numbers show that. So just another swipe that he, is known for. And I was on my way up. I have a 3-hour drive from my district, so I was on my way up, and it was just weighing heavily on my mind. And I went and seen her Tuesday morning and thanked her because we had a windstorm here, and she declared the county a disaster. So I went and thanked her for that, and then mentioned the Post and I told her I was considering to switch, and she said, "You take care of yourself." But it was just, like I said, it was just too much, and that day was going on, the special session was going on, so I had to take care of that. And the next day,
I'm proud of you. I really am. We're going to come back. If you can stick with us one more segment, Senator Jeff Reichman from the great state of Iowa, not just protecting with loyalty his friend Governor Kim Reynolds, but we're going to get into other reasons why he left the Trump train for DeSantis. This is a 29-year Marine combat veteran, retired last year, tours of duty in Iraq. He's a hero, and I want to hear more about why he switched. Stay with us. Tom Anderson Show.
.com. This is the Tom Anderson Show, broadcasting live from the KVNT studios, 7 to 9 a.m., Monday through Friday.
We continue with Iowa State Senator Jeff Reichman discussing. He's retired almost 30 years, 3 decades in the U.S. Marine Corps, and retired last year. So we were just getting into the nitty-gritty. Yes, he was defensive of his beloved Governor Kim Reynolds, but he also had other reasons why he publicly said, hey, I'm leaving the Trump bandwagon and I'm putting my support behind Governor Ron DeSantis for president, governor of the state of Florida. So, Senator, first of all, I have to ask, I'm familiar with retribution, with reaction from former President Trump. We've seen it as a headline, and we've seen it in news coverage. What happened when you publicly transitioned over to Governor DeSantis? Did the Trump team say anything or accuse you of anything?
Well, yes, yeah. And like you said, most of the time when we see, as you said, a retribution from the Trump campaign, even we mentioned McCain. For gosh sakes, my dad was I've got a long line of military history in my family. My grandfather was in Army, World War II. My uncle was in Korea. My dad served in Vietnam in the Air Force, and then myself. So when Trump came out against McCain and really badmouthed him, and my dad was just furious. How dare him, somebody who avoided the draft, attack a veteran, a POW. And even myself, I couldn't defend him at that point. I didn't know what was going on. But we find out later that, why Trump so viciously went after McCain, that McCain was the one who hand-carried as they've termed it, the dirty dossier into the Senate, and the investigation ensued. So, but, with this time when Trump made the comment against Reynolds, and I know Reynolds, I've worked with her for 3 years. My fiance, Renee, has attended her church. They've gone to church together for the last 10 years. We know this person. We know, and she's not only just a wonderful governor, but she's an outstanding person. And so when he came out and attacked her, like I said, it was just a bridge too far.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, Miller Meeks, who are your congressional members? Hinson, Nunn, Finstra, your U.S. Senate delegation. All-stars, Ernst, Joni Ernst, Charles Grassley. When I was a legislative aide.
Grassley.
Yeah, when I was a legislative aide, I remember sitting in Eagle River outside of Anchorage, this tiny office working for new state representative Mary Miller, and in walks U.S. Senator Grassley. I think it was like a freshman. And I was like, wow, from Iowa. Are any of them endorsing DeSantis or Trump, or have they discussed it congressionally or U.S. senatorially?
Everybody's stayed out of it. That I think that's been the theme, and like a mutual agreement that they all stay out of it at that level. So there's been several at the state level, like myself, that have endorsed various candidates, but for the national level, they've stayed out of it.
Sure. Yeah, I'm laughing because my dear
Grassley,
friend.
I mean, the legend continues.
Oh yeah,
right?
no,
he's like the legend continues.
He is like our U.S. Senator Ted Stevens for sure, to be sure. But I gotta laugh. My dear friend, Some of our audience isn't a fan, but she's a longtime friend. We were colleagues together in the state legislature, and then her dad was elected governor, U.S. Senator Frank Murkowski, and appointed her U.S. Senator, and she's still in. She's won. Lisa Murkowski said, I'd like to see Joe Manchin from West Virginia, their dear friends, as president, so I giggle at that. Joe's not running, and he's been on the show. But let's talk about reasons why you dig DeSantis. I'm assuming his credentials, his military service, with which I will say Trump pretty much avoided military service. I'm assuming his stature, what his results in Florida, his ambassadorial and his foreign relations acumen and his tenacity. There's got to be a lot of reasons you like Ron DeSantis over Trump.
Yes, and you touched on a lot of those. And I mentioned the parity that we have between Florida and Iowa with the legislation that we've passed and the initiatives that we've taken. And then when I had a conversation with DeSantis myself, he said, Trump's got too many distractions. And DeSantis said, yes, I can get the results, and the media can attack my initiatives, but they can't attack me personally. And that's been what the sideshow with Trump has gone on. And it's distraction. And I think it's a little, obviously too much. And really, I think, hampered some of the progress he could have made. So by DeSantis staying out of the headlines for his personal issues and the parity that we have, and then he's going to be the first candidate. He's the first candidate that has had military service for 30 years, and that used to be a qualifier.
That's a big deal.
Presidential.
Especially on the Republican side. For sure. We're talking with State Senator Jeff Reichman from the state of Iowa. I have two other areas I want to talk about. First is, I think of Alaska with resource development, oil, gas, commercial fishing, so many areas, and we speak about this when we talk about presidential candidacy often on the show. And I look at the great state of Iowa with agriculture, manufacture. We touched on that earlier, last segment. It seems to me that Donald Trump doesn't research this thing. He may have a kitchen cabinet, but like he came through Alaska, stopped briefly, waved, but really didn't dig deep into our economic, military, Arctic policy issues. And I don't think he's done that in Iowa. He may try to curry votes and be obsequious to people to get their support, but I don't feel he researches and is scholarly with his presidency. And I think DeSantis is, I think a lot of the GOP candidates, Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, they're smart. Do you think that's important too? DeSantis's brain, how smart he is. I mean, Trump's smart enough, but DeSantis is really a brilliant fellow.
He is, and I've got a friend who's working on his campaign now, and he said he rode an aircraft with him to some destination, and he was reading the entire time, and he's a Yale graduate, a Harvard graduate, so he is a big brain guy, and I think more cerebral than Trump.
Sure,
kind of definitely. But as you said, we have now a supermajority in the Senate side here in Iowa. So just 10 years ago, we took over the majority. The Republican Party did, and inherited like $1 billion debt from Chet Culver, and in that time, we've changed it from $1 billion in debt to a $3 billion surplus because of our policies. And with that, we've passed on now tax cuts, a 5% tax cut from where it was. So we have a good economy here. A lot of prices are rising. The farmers say, we are praying for this harvest like no other because it's the most expensive one we put in, between fuel costs, fertilizer costs, all this stuff that Biden has caused us. So we haven't had much rain here, and we still got our fingers crossed, like I say, and saying a lot of prayers that this harvest comes in well, and we have our good economy continues.
No, abs. By the way, folks, Chet Culver, Democrat. He was the gov in Iowa from 7 to 11. He was Secretary of State previous to that. Unremarkable governor, I agree. Last question. Talking with State Senator Reichman. So you're a military guy, Semper Fi, you're a Marine, once a Marine, always a Marine. Talking to your friends, your buddies in the military, still in or out, do they support DeSantis? They've got to. When we see the poll results nationally, I know it's not our veterans. I know it's not our cops. I know it's not our first responders answering those polls, because I think they're for DeSantis.
I haven't had a chance to talk to any of those about this. This has been pretty recent, so not this topic specifically. But, I did see polls, and there's been Trump's losing some percentage, and, I think he was only at 1% at this point in his presidency and his run as first candidacy. So we'll see where this goes, but it looks like there's some momentum shift away from him, and we hope that continues. And
no, for sure. Well, and not only momentum, but we have a long time to go, folks. The election, August and November, lots of debates ahead. I hope you're senator at the debate when DeSantis is there on the dais in Iowa. My friend, thank you for your time. His name is State Senator Jeff Reichman. You can follow him online, and keep up the good work. Thank you for your military service and for your current public service. It doesn't go unnoticed. You're an all-star, and I appreciate your efforts and courage.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You betcha.
Have a good day.
You betcha. We'll make a YouTube video of this, folks. Give us your comments below. That's State Senator Jeff Reichman from Iowa. Stay with us. Good morning. Tom Anderson Show.